It's amazing to me what modern games have sort of become in 2022. I think there's a lot of positive things out there. I think there's a lot of positive things with modern games. The problem I have, and the whole point of this video, which I don't have a script for, it's going to be all over the place. I don't even know how I'm going to edit this video. It is what it is. The problem is that fears are starting to become realities. You know, things that we thought, no, that'll never happen with this company, that'll never happen with this game, is becoming more and more prevalent as actually happening. And it's like, is there any sort of way to stop it? Is there any sort of way to circumvent this? Because it doesn't look like there is. It doesn't look like there is, with the rise of digital stuff in video games, with the rise of being connected online all the time. It's given developers a lot of freedom with stuff. And I'm not talking about free to play games. I'm not talking about discounted games that have things like various passes and all of this sort of stuff to get money over time. I'm not talking about those games. I'm talking about the games that are supposed to be complete projects. I'm talking about the games that you would assume, because of the lineage and the history of these titles, that there would be a satisfactory product available to you on day one with these things. You know, I'm not talking about smaller games or newer games. I'm talking about the heavy hitters, the things that we grew up with, the things that we have a lot of nostalgia for, and the things that sort of set the bar in video games throughout the years. I'm probably going to be all over the place in this video, and I might even contradict myself. Tell me if I did in the comment section down below. But I'm just kind of disgusted with the direction that video games are going in right now. And it's all companies. You know, this used to be something that was just, you know, you were worried about it with certain companies, your EAs and your Activisions, and you were like, oh, well, that'll never happen with a big first party title. That'll never happen with that. And what happened? It did. I could think of 3 specific titles that I'm going to sort of talk about within this video from all 3 of the major companies: Sony, Xbox, and Nintendo. All 3 of these games have core problems that I think exemplify the issues with modern gaming in 2022. And it's a very dangerous path that we're going down, and it's a very dangerous road that we don't need to be going down. Video games are supposed to be expanding. They're supposed to be becoming bigger and better. It's something that we've seen with every console generation. Look at generational leaps from all these consoles. Whenever you had the NES to the Super Nintendo, or the Sega Master System to the Genesis, you had this generational leap. Oh, these things couldn't be done on this platform. They couldn't be done on my old system. Of course, that continued on pretty much until the last generation, I feel. Once we started getting to the Xbox One, the PlayStation 4, the Nintendo Wii U, we started hitting a bit of a wall. We started hitting a bit of a wall because a lot of the things that we got on those systems, there are great games on there, don't get me wrong, but a lot of those things, you could look at games from the previous generation and be like, oh, you know, that's kind of similar to that. You know, the amount of content you get, the amount of stuff you get with that, it's kind of similar. And people are going to say, well, RGT, it costs more to make video games now than it did back in the day. And to some extent, you're correct. I understand that. But you also have to remember something. The video game industry is, right now, is healthier than it's ever been before. Meaning that more money is coming in, meaning that these games are making more profit, meaning that these companies are now getting, you know, funding from outside companies to make these video games, yet the standard of content that you get is diminishing. And I don't understand that. I can think of a game like Shenmue. Okay, let's talk about Shenmue. Shenmue at the time of its creation was the most expensive game that was ever made. Point blank, period. And you could tell when you pop that game into your Dreamcast that this was unlike something that you had ever seen before. The Dreamcast wasn't selling very well. The Dreamcast did not sell very well. It was unfortunately Sega's last system. But when you played Shenmue, it took you to a place that you had never been before. It took you to an era that you had never been before. It took you to gameplay mechanics that you had never seen before. And what happened? The game kind of flopped. The game didn't make a lot of money. You know, the game wasn't very successful. So what ended up happening with that? We got a sequel. We got a sequel to that game. The game that cost Sega so much money and Yu Suzuki so much money ended up getting a sequel. Now, granted, the sequel didn't have a chance of survival either, because on the Dreamcast, it only came out in Europe and Japan. Then it ended up coming out on the original Xbox, which, once again, did not light the world on fire. But that game still got a sequel because companies back then used to look at the bigger vision. They used to look at the bigger picture with this, where it's like, okay, well, maybe this game didn't quite light the world on fire, but there was a lot of critical acclaim for it. So maybe if we do a secondary game that's available on a different platform, we could get more things. Of course, that didn't work out, but they took a chance. You know, they took a chance with that game, and they tried to expand that story. They tried to expand that world. And we've seen so many predatory things within the video game industry, especially as of late. Things like your microtransactions and full price games, things like nickel and diming as much as you can get. It's becoming more and more prevalent. But I go back to what I was saying originally, is that I can think of 3 titles from the 3 major companies, Sony, Xbox, and Nintendo, that are just proof of how modern gaming is becoming bullshit because of a variety of different reasons. Let's talk about Halo Infinite. Okay, let's get the cat out of the bag with Halo Infinite. At its core, Halo Infinite is a solid game. The gameplay mechanics are pretty good. But let's be real, when that game launched, it was a barren wasteland of content. There was nothing. There was no game modes. There was absolutely nothing. But we're led to believe, we're conditioned to believe, oh, well, this game's gonna get better. We got DLC coming. We got season passes coming. We got roadmaps coming. And yes, you can make the case, oh, well, that was a Game Pass game. And that's a conversation for a whole nother day when you want to talk about Game Pass games, because the vast majority of people who wanted to play Halo just played it via Game Pass. Is Game Pass ruining gaming with allowing companies to release games that are essentially free on the service and then people check it out? That's a conversation for another day. But when you look at Halo, and you look at the launch and the rollout of this game, it's been absolute bullshit. The seasons take forever. The amount of content that you get for this has been an absolute drip feed. And now we, of course, got to a situation where things that were promised, things that were supposed to be features that were supposed to be available in this game are being cut, such as split screen co-op for the campaign mode. We still don't have the ability to play the campaign mode with somebody online. That's coming in between November and January, they said. Oh, this, that, and the other is coming between November and January, and then here's the next season. Where's the content with this game? Did I buy Halo 2 back in the day thinking, oh man, I really hope that they add more content in this game? No, it didn't even need it, but they did that. And what did they do? They did a little disc that you bought that was like the Halo 2 expansion. It was like $20, and you got a whole hell of a lot more maps and other stuff to really enjoy the game. We're paying more money for less content, for more DLC, for more roadmaps. Roadmaps. I don't like roadmaps. What is the point of a roadmap? Don't talk to me about DLC for a game. Don't give me a roadmap for a game before the game even comes out. That just shows that you're half-assing this initial release. This isn't the full product. When you bought a game back in the day, if it sucked, it sucked. Okay? If you bought the game and it was trash, that was it. There was no correcting things. There was no fixing things. And initially it seemed like, and maybe we were all naive, but we were like, okay, this is great. You know, if there is a bug, if there is an issue with the game when it releases, now these companies can just do things to fix it with patches and stuff like that. I'm sure that's not gonna diminish the quality of the games available on day one. No, they're not gonna do that to us. And what do? That's exactly what they did. Games released with huge game-breaking bugs on day one. They get fixed a few weeks later, and then it is what it is. It's commonplace now. It's something that we accept now, and it's like, well, should we really accept it? Is that what this industry is becoming? Is that what this medium is becoming? You can talk about high game prices. It costs more to make a game nowadays than it did back in the day. Yes, but you're making more profit on these games as well. And the amount of tools available to you are staggering compared to what it used to be back in the day. Back in the day, not any person could just make a freaking video game. Okay, it was a very regulated thing. There wasn't these individual creators and these new studios popping up left and right with all the amount of technology, because the technology wasn't there. Nowadays, any jackass with a computer can make a video game. There are asset packs. There's tons of stuff to do. You see so many one-man teams making games. You see so many individuals and small groups of people making awesome video games. Yet with these bigger companies, with these large companies, with established franchises, they're just shitting out whatever they want. And people are buying it. People are consuming it because they have that nostalgia for the franchise. Let's move over to Sony. Sony, what was their big blunder in 2022? Gran Turismo 7. Gran Turismo 7 is a good game. At its core, it's a good game. Yes, it does have some problems. There are some problems with the races and stuff like that. There are problems with this always online connection, even though you're not playing the game online, you're just playing the single player stuff. There are problems with the game, but you know, it's a fun racing game, especially if you're a fan. The problem is, once again, roadmaps, DLC, this, that, and the other. Oh, we're going to extend the life of the game. We're going to extend the life of the game. When you look at the amount of content in this game versus Gran Turismo 4, Gran Turismo 2, Gran Turismo 5, it is appalling. It is appalling. And I mentioned those 3 Gran Turismo games because all of those Gran Turismo games launched on different platforms. Gran Turismo 2 was a PlayStation 1 game. Gran Turismo 4 was a PlayStation 2 game. Gran Turismo 5 was a PlayStation 3 game. You look at the amount of courses, you look at the amount of tracks, you look at the amount of cars that you have available in those games comparatively to what you have in Gran Turismo 7, it's disgusting. It's a fraction of the amount of content. Oh, it costs more money. Costs more money. They got to make the visuals better. Have the visuals really gotten that much better? Have they really gotten that much better over time with this drip feed of content, taking away core elements of the gameplay? Oh, you want to sell your car? Something you could do in literally every fucking Gran Turismo game since the dawn of time. Nope, can't do it in 7. Oh, people are mad at us. Well, we'll say that we're going to add it in there, but we're not going to give any updates on that. We'll add it in eventually. And then when you do, they're just raising the prices of the cars. See, that was a problem initially, was the fact that you couldn't sell cars and the prices were too high anyways. So they kind of went down a bit on the prices of the cars, but they also got rid of the things that you could cheese in order to unlock the cars faster by getting more money. And then they took the Haggerty Classics section of the game, which is like, you know, more rare cars, more older cars, kind of the cars that you'll never drive. You might not ever see this car in person, but it would be a cool thing to check out. It'd be a cool thing to mess around with. Now we're going to raise the prices of those to astronomical numbers. I think I've bought like 1 or 2 of the cars in that. But don't worry. More tracks are coming. More cars are coming. AKA stuff that's already done. It's already done. It wasn't available on day one because they want the game to last longer. They want the game to have a longer life. And what they're doing is they're not making the game have a longer life. They're not making the game so that you keep wanting to come back for the content. You're making people pissed off because they see the amount of content available on day one. They see the amount of things that are not available in this game versus previous games in the franchise, and they're like, well, this is disrespectful. This is ridiculous. Why would you do this? Why would you make less in a more modern game? This is really the first generation where we're getting less shit in our games versus the previous generation, yet we're getting charged the same price or more. $70 for Gran Turismo 7. $70. A game that has a native version for the PlayStation 4 as well. PlayStation 4, I mean, it's just, it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. Roadmaps, DLC. Here's the roadmap for content coming out. We want you to keep playing the game. You don't need a roadmap. You need a good game. You need a game that has a lot of content. You need to have a game that has a lot of reasons for people to keep coming back to play it. Roadmap, to some extent, might extend the life of it for some players, but for a lot of players, you know what? They're going to move on to something else. Look at the numbers for people playing Halo Infinite right now. Look at the numbers. Not that many people playing it. People are moving on. People are going into other games. Other games are constantly coming out all the time. There's better experiences. There's better games. There's different games. There's games that respect your time and aren't a shell of what they used to be. I know what you're saying. Well, Nintendo. You haven't mentioned Nintendo yet, RGT. You Nintendo biased son of a bitch. It's not the case. Mario Strikers Battle League. One of the most confusing experiences I've ever had with a video game. Because much like Halo, much like Gran Turismo, at its core, it's a good game. I think the gameplay is fun enough. There are some mechanics that I don't necessarily care for with the game, but still, there's a good game there. What's the problem with it then? A $60 game where the amount of content in it is the exact same as it was 15 years ago on the GameCube. Oh, but don't worry. Daisy's coming, folks. Daisy's coming down the alleyway. Here comes the Shy Guy too. We can't have him on day one because there would be too much to do. You want to play online with your friends? Well, you can go to hell. You can only play 2 players at a time. What the hell's that smell? I didn't know where I was going with that. It was kind of a song, kind of a rap. But they literally have like the same, and people say it all the time. Oh, well, it's pretty much the same as what they had on the GameCube. You're going to hold this company to a standard of having the exact same amount of content that was available on the GameCube. As games have progressed, as we've gotten things like online play, as games are becoming bigger and better, games are making more money, charging the same $60 price point for a game that has the same amount of content from a game from 15 years ago. And 15 years ago, it didn't quite have enough content. Games are supposed to be becoming better and bigger and more and more. We have these award shows. Jeff Keighley, let's talk about the best ongoing game. No, I don't want to talk about the best ongoing game. We're giving games passes for releasing as total bullshit, and then 3 or 4 years later, addressing these issues and then becoming the game that it was supposed to be, and we're supposed to celebrate this. We're supposed to be happy about this. This is supposed to be a joyous celebration. It's not! It's not! It's showing how half-assed things have become. And every company's guilty of it. Sony's guilty of it. Xbox is guilty of it. Nintendo's guilty of it. Remakes, remasters, and that's what you get. Remember the game that you played before? You're going to play it again. We're creatively bankrupt. We're afraid to do new IPs. We're afraid to take a risk because our stocks might dip a little. We might not make quite as much money as we have before. And I like remakes. I like remasters, If it's a great game, I don't care about playing it again. But it just reminds you. Honestly, all these remakes and all these remasters just kind of remind you of a time when there was this quality, a quality standard. A game came out, you weren't worried about it. It's a new Zelda game, I'm not worried about that. It's a new Gran Turismo, I'm not worried about that. New Halo, I'm not worried about that. These are going to be banger titles. These are going to be great games. And now when a game is announced, or game is even talked about, there's automatically a negative connotation with it. Well, what's the DLC going to look like? What's that season pass going to look like? What's the whole roadmap going to look like with this? How much content's going to be available on day one? Is the online, or talking about Nintendo, is the online going to be, shitty? Or is it going to be, effective? Something like, is it going to be Splatoon 3? Look at Splatoon 3. Everyone was worried about Splatoon 3 because of Mario Strikers Battle League. They were like, well, look at how bad they messed up Mario Strikers Battle League. Is that going to be the case with Splatoon 3? You're creating fear in your consumers because of your inconsistent practices. Because of your half-assing of things, because your things like roadmap and your things like DLCs, talking about DLC before a game even comes out. It's obvious what you're doing with that. You're obviously working on the DLC already. So why isn't it in the main game? DLC shouldn't be a thing that you talk about. Roadmap shouldn't be a thing that you talk about unless it's a free-to-play game or a heavily discounted game. I'm just disgusted. I'm disgusted. And you know what? At the end of the day, I'm part of the problem. I'm part of the problem because I buy these games. I check out these games. I give these games a chance, I want to love these games. Such fond memories of Gran Turismo 2, playing it on the Bleemcast with Pecker Dupree, and playing it on his Dreamcast via the Bleemcast, Halo. Back when I worked at GameStop, we used to get a bunch of CRTs together and play Halo 2 after work was done. Mario Strikers Battle League. Mario Strikers on the GameCube. Used to play it all the time with my buddy Rob in my little smoky, shitty apartment. It smelled so bad. And now it's just like, these companies don't care. They're just trying to nickel and dime you. Profits aren't enough anymore. We need more profits. We need more money. Bigger, better. Are we really seeing bigger and better with games? Or are we starting to get to a point now where every company is just scared because of the investors? They're scared of things like the bottom line. They're scared out of their mind to take a risk because of the fact that they won't make quite as much money. They'll dip a little bit. I don't know, man. I don't know. I was all over the place in this video. It is what it is. If I contradicted myself, please let me know in the comments section down below, because I'm sure I did to some degree, but I just want to get this off my chest, man. It's kind of disgusting. It's disgusting what this industry and this medium is becoming. And don't get me started on the whole Hollywood. Let's pander to Hollywood. We're bigger than Hollywood. Video games are bigger than Hollywood. Video games make more money than Hollywood. Hollywood should be on their knees, groveling. What's the word? I don't know. They should be worshiping our feet, washing our feet and our sores on our feet like Mary frickin' Magdalene. Catch you guys on the next video. Later.